Looking back at the year, you've done politics for a long time. How do you make of it? How would you surmise this year compared to all others?
Oh, well, I've never seen a year like it. I remember, I was coming off the Sunday agenda. I was replacing Paul Kelly on the desk for the spot at the end of the show, and I said, "Have you ever seen anything like this?" And he said, "No, not my whole life." I don't know, God knows where we end up. And that was sort of March, April, when it was looking really bad. Yeah. And then things started looking, unless you're in Melbourne, things started looking pretty fantastic, really. And the key for us is island nation, international borders. We shut them off. I think about the UK at the moment, hearing stories from there and watching the news from there. People aren't allowed guests over for Christmas. That's how horrible and miserable.
That's right.
And how lucky are we? Yeah,
absolutely. So what do you give Morrison, Frydenberg, etc.? What sort of a report card do you give?
Oh, I think, you'd give them sort of 7 to 8 out of 10. Easy. So, I mean, I think they've done pretty well. We've got all this debt to pay back. That's the only problem. But I agree with the policy of JobKeeper and so forth, and there's no doubt that stopped disaster socially and economically for us.
And next year, COVID is going to continue. It's going to continue being the dominant theme, and China is as well. Is that what next year is basically going to be about?
Yeah, look, I think there's some barnacles for the government heading into the year. I think China's the number one. Do people start sort of saying to the government or thinking of the government, could we have handled this better? At the moment, they're right behind them on the approach on China, but if it affects our economy more, do they get questioned more on that? The SAS report and the handling of that's a really sensitive issue for the government. Yeah. Unemployment, that'll have a bit of a tail to it. That'll continue to rise, I don't think. And the vaccine's the other issue. How will it work? Will it be a cure-all? I don't believe it will from all the advice I have. So how do we then get back into international travel, international students and all that? And there's not a lot of hope in relation to that. There's a feeling we'll still have quarantine even though we'll have a vaccine, which is kind of annoying really. But I guess it's better to have a vaccine than not because it ends up saving lives if COVID leaks again. But how long are we going to shut our international borders for? That's a big question.
What about the opposition? It's hard for them to have really made a mark this year, given the year that we've had. What is the play for them next year? And do you see Anthony Albanese? He's doing an event live at the moment. Is he still going to be leader by the end of next year? Crystal ball time.
Okay, so look, I think if I was betting on it, I'd say an election at the end of next year. That's what I'm planning for. Opposition leader-wise, I think it's 50-50 if he'll be leader at the end of next year. And that's really down to media performance, frankly. Policy also, but media performance. He's pretty long-winded in the Kim Beazley mould. Someone like Jim Chalmers cuts through. Yep. Tanya Plibersek clearly wants the job. Do they go to her at the last minute if the polling isn't looking so good? Look, their primary vote is abysmal still. It's between 34 and 36%. Morrison's up from sort of 41 to 43. And the two-party preferred news poll's 51-49, but no one believes that. I think it's more 52.5 to the coalition. I think they can win 5 seats in New South Wales, the coalition, 7 seats generally at the moment. So Albanese needs to lift, or the New South Wales right, who are going to lose a lot of those seats, will get nervous.
Is there an opening, policy-wise, where they can land a punch?
There always is. It really depends on... that's a problem with federal politics at the moment. You got 2 guys who used to be head office officials in charge of the major parties. They're very focused group and polling focused. They don't think a lot about policy. And I think there's always policy opportunity in this country. The best Albo's done is childcare. That was well received, but he hasn't come up with the big vision. Scott Morrison too, he seems a bit cautious around reform. So where's his big vision? At the moment it's a sort of environment with the pandemic. You just want to manage it. He's a good manager.